Welcome in, Clark.
Thank you. As I was saying, it is really great to be here because Fred and I actually go way, way back. I used to be the executive director of an organization called the Conservation Council of Virginia back in 1980, and that now is called the Virginia Conservation Network. I was the first professional executive director and had some connection with Maymont because at that time a fellow named Bob Hicks was, I guess, the director out here, and he went on to great things. And Fred and I go way back from the early days of the Wildlife Center, back when we both had brown hair and a lot more of it. So anyway, the Wildlife Center, for those of you that didn't hear the opening remarks, Wildlife Center of Virginia is actually a teaching and research hospital for wildlife. We're a nonprofit organization. We're an independent organization, so we're not connected in any formal way with any other groups other than through partnerships, and that's like our partnership here with Maymont. We've been around for 25 years, and in that 25 years, our veterinary medical staff, we started on day one with veterinarians and technicians and full medical facilities, and we have cared for something in the neighborhood of 51, almost 52,000 wild animals, probably close to 300 species. We realized very early on, a reporter came in one day and asked one of my colleagues, what are the 3 leading causes of injuries to wild animals? And without missing a beat, he says, men, women, and children. And then the next thing after that's their cats. And we'll have that conversation another day. But in any case, we realized that without changing human behavior, we're really not going to change very much for wildlife. And conservation is really about human behavior and human interaction with wildlife, whether it's human decision-making about habitat, or the pesticides we use in our yards, or how we manage our pets, or just the kind of energy decisions we make on what kind of vehicle we're going to drive and how much we drive it. It all has an impact on wildlife. And so the mission of our organization is teaching the world to care about and care for wildlife and the environment. So even though we are a wildlife hospital, our clients are people. Our patients are wildlife, but we are a human service organization and think of ourselves as such. Last November, because of some of the work we've done, the National Wildlife Federation, which sponsors the National Conservation Awards Program, it designated the Wildlife Center of Virginia the Conservation Organization of the Year for the entire United States. And we're very proud of that. The other award recipients, the Government Conservationist of the Year last year was Governor Schwarzenegger in California because of his global warming initiatives at the state level, and the Conservationist of the Year is Nobel laureate, former Vice President Al Gore. So they were in pretty good company being on the podium with us. So they did not have an eagle, and I can assure you I had more pictures taken of me. But in any case, people ask me, what do I do at the Wildlife Center? And if the truth be told, it's not much. I am the president of the organization, but I really do consider my job to be to hire the best people, have connections with the powers that be when I need the sun turned down so we're not so hot.
Amen.
Hire good people and stay out of their way. But our staff includes 3 full-time wildlife veterinarians, a full medical team including technicians, biologists, rehabilitators. We've got an education staff that goes out and gives programs to about 50,000 people a year, especially a lot of school programs. So if any of you parents are interested in having conservation programs in your schools, and if you've been to the Maymont programs, you know how wonderful it can be. A lot of our programs are similar, but in some ways different, because we're bringing the perspective of a wildlife hospital. And we'd like to say we see wildlife and see the world through the eyes of wildlife, because when we come and talk about things like habitat loss, we're probably not going to talk to you so much about how many acres and how many square miles. We're going to talk through the stories of the individual animals. We're going to talk about the eagle whose nest tree was bulldozed, or the hawk who lost its home because of a development, things of this nature, and simply use animals to illustrate the problems that we all know exist. Now, one of the things that we have to do a lot is talk about stuff that's not very happy. We have endangered animals, we have habitat loss, we've got global warming, we've got climate change, we've got a proliferation of toxic chemicals, and it just seems like we've always got bad stuff to say all the time. But the good news is, there's good news. And you can't be in the conservation field, and those of us who've been doing it a long time, Fred and Lee Walker back here with the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries, we've all been at this a long time, and you can't stay in this business unless you're basically an optimist. And if you don't think you can make things better, you just don't get out of bed in the morning, and that's just the bottom line. And the bald eagle probably represents one of the best examples of how people can, if they want to, make things better. And as was said when Dave Whitehurst spoke earlier this morning, back in 1970 we had 33 nesting pairs of bald eagles in the state, and this year it's 566, is that right? 566 nesting pairs. Now that's just the reproducing birds. That's not all the additional birds that are juveniles, that's not all the single birds, that's not all the birds that are not mated up, and that really represents a dramatic increase. Dramatic increase. Now, if, do we declare victory and quit? No, not at all. It also means that we have to be more vigilant to keep these birds from going back to the brink of extinction and the brink of endangerment. So we work very closely with not only other conservation and education organizations like the folks here at Maymont. We work very closely with our colleagues at the State Wildlife Agency, the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries, and actually everything we do is because the State Wildlife Agency gives us the permits that authorize us to do it. We are a teaching hospital, so we get veterinary students from every veterinary school in the United States and Canada and from 30 other countries that come to the Wildlife Center's facilities in Waynesboro, Virginia to study the specialized field of wildlife medicine. Now, a lot of veterinarians are out there to care for wildlife, but in vet school they have almost no training at all. And this is true of almost every veterinary school in the world, but certainly those in the United States and Canada. The majority of training is domestic animal medicine because wild animals don't write checks and nobody owns them to write checks. So if you want to make a living, jobs in wildlife, probably not the place to go if you really had your heart set on that brand new BMW, as I'm sure my colleagues would share with me. But the truth is that we have people that care, come to learn the specialized skills, and we work all over the world. I do a lot of work personally in Latin America, training military and law enforcement agencies to deal with wildlife trafficking. We've had some real adventures. We run travel programs to Africa every year, and a lot of folks just don't know that about the Wildlife Center. But it all comes back to the basis that we are a hospital for wild animals. And fixing those animals gives us the opportunity to learn what's breaking them. So for us, even repairing a bald eagle and setting it free, that's great. We love it. We really love it. But that's not the point. It's caring for that animal that lets us learn why it was injured in the first place so that we can work with our colleagues in education, our colleagues in state management, and our U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service or other federal and even international agencies in wildlife management protection to see to it that what happens to our patients doesn't happen again to other animals. And that's really what it's all about.